take up space, go explore, expand. We say broaden your horizons. We mean that not only in the literal sense, but mentally, right? Like your exposure to cultures and taste and ideas. Um, and that's just, there's no other better way to do that but through traveling and studying abroad.
Welcome to Unexpected Journey, the show where each week top professionals share work wisdom and life lessons about their careers and what they have learned about human experience in the workplace. I'm your host, Ann Bibb. In today's episode, we have Bola Idebepo, a passionate advocate for education and nonprofit law and the co-founder and executive director of the Two Fly Foundation. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe and leave your comments below. Now let's get started. You've been part of my journey and part of my life for a long time. You actually went to high school with two of my kids.
Yeah.
I know. It's wild to sit here and I'm like, there's no way. Like looking, it's crazy to watch and see. I'm like a proud like side mama sitting on the sidelines cheering you on because of that. And then to watch and see, like you were recently actually even on the Kelly Clarkson show with the Two Fly Foundation. Like, what was that like?
That was one of those cool, surreal moments that really didn't hit until we were backstage in our green rooms. I was there with my co-founder for the Two Fly Foundation, Brandon Miller. And it was just one of those like cool moments because we didn't plan to be there, we were just
No?
doing this work.
How did that happen? Like, how did you get pulled into that?
One of the producers, associate producers, I guess, found us through another article and the work that we were doing and reached out and said that, there's a possibility we would like to bring you on the show. And they vetted us and asked us a bunch of questions. And next thing you know, we're on stage with Kelly Clarkson and Tyler Perry and Parker Young. And it was just the surrealist moment because our org just loves to help kids. So the fact that, we were just invited because of what we do, it was, we're grateful. And it's been a cool growing moment too for us in general. Cause at that time we were 4 years, 5 years into doing what we're doing. So very surreal, very
So
surreal.
not just Kelly Clarkson, but Tyler Perry.
Right. Literally.
Like sitting on a couch next to Tyler Perry,
It's
like
pretty cool. Yeah.
one of the kings of giving to nonprofits and charities for Black and brown students. And like you're just like, oh hey, how you doing, Bola?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. Really cool, and he's super tall too, which I think I knew, but being next to him, it was cool, and Kelly was hilarious. So once again, it was just one of those, like, cool God, like, wow moments, like, we just kinda soaked it in, and if anything, it just showed us, we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, and we're still continuing to do the work that we did.
absolutely. So speaking of why you were there, tell us about Two Fly Foundation.
Yeah. The Two Fly Foundation started really in 2016. It started from a conversation between me and my co-founder, one of my co-founders, Brandon Miller. Um, and literally, we just were exchanging our experiences of studying abroad and what it meant for us as then young students. Brandon at the time was doing a fundraiser through his another brand that he used to have for Passport Awareness Month, and we were just talking and I was like, you should have a happy hour fundraiser and call it like the Two Fly fundraiser. And that's literally how we started. And we were like, well, we know some people that would care about this in Dallas. And I think we know some people in Chicago, and then we know some people in DC. And so we started kind of this grassroots fundraising campaign in different cities. And um, we started off simply with one goal was we want to help kids get their passports. And that's where we started. We started passport scholarships, and then they grew into larger grants, and then we've grown into other programming that helps expose the even idea of travel because we really are tapping into students that are one underrepresented, which are usually Black and brown students that don't have the exposure or the idea to study abroad, and then what we call under resourced. So these are students that are the first in their family to leave their city or state. They're the first in their family likely to have a passport. Um, and it's been great. This August, 2023 will be 7 years old. So it's been great to see it grow.
That's a huge impact to have on somebody. If they're the first in their generation to leave the city, I mean, to leave the state, but to leave a city,
Hmm. Hmm.
you have been so sheltered from diversity of thought
Yeah,
to be able to open individuals up to the entire world by sharing a passport with them and giving them that, maybe not even the flight, but just giving them the accessibility to
exactly.
get outside of a country to see
Exactly.
how other cultures live. That's huge.
Exactly. And that's exactly what it is. It's, the passport part to me is ownership, right? Like, it's not only, especially for these minority students, like, it's not even just you being able to travel, there's ownership in claiming that this country is yours, and then there's ownership in you can go wherever else you want to go to as well. Like, take up space, go explore, expand. We say broaden your horizons. We mean that not only in the literal sense but mentally, right? Like, your exposure to cultures and taste and ideas. um and that's just, there's no other better way to do that but through traveling and studying abroad.
So, what are, as you've, I think we mentioned that you had helped over 200 students to get passports. What are some stories, maybe some success stories of students that have participated in your program? What has come from this?
Yeah, it's you know one student that I love his testimony. His name is Thomas Lee. And when we helped him, he was going out of his sophomore year to his junior year. And we helped give him a scholarship to help him go to Japan. And, he was Hispanic male, um, with parents that were working multiple jobs. He's working to also put himself through school. Even now, currently, as he finishes up college, which I'm so proud of him, is doing everything he can to pay his way through school. And knowing that he went there and he came back and he's inspired by the inventions and robots there, and is aspiring to be a mechanical engineer, and him saying, I know that he was the first in his family to take an experience like that, and the fact that he went abroad and he was inspired about what he could be and what he could create. Um, i think about I'm thinking about one student, female student from Atlanta that went to Ghana, and her connecting with her roots, and knowing that she's of that same ancestry and going there and feeling more connected to a place that's really in her as well. And these are the stories that we're getting from students, where they're being inspired about their own heritage, or they're being inspired of what they can become or learn or do. My philosophy really is, the time to build tomorrow's CEO or president or chef or whatever is not when they're older. Not saying that we can't, right? But sometimes us older people, we're a little less, flexible. So to be able to tap into a young person's mind and expose them to what they can be, the world, like, what other way to do that but show them the world and all the options that come with it.
Absolutely. Now, you mentioned how you came about this, that you and your co-founder were just kind of having a conversation. And I think some of the greatest, whether it's businesses or foundations or ideas, they just come about this. But what were some of the challenges that you faced as you were, taking this kind of grassroots idea that just kind of came about? What were some of the challenges that you faced as you started to implement this random thought and put it into execution?
Yeah. This might shock you, but when we first started doing this, I mean, two things, right? Well, one, just our demographic in general, right? Like, we're young, we're Black, and even now,
You are not.
no, right? I know this shocked you, but I am. And, and so in general, tapping into the rooms, our team has always been creative in how we execute and how we impact. And so getting people to pour into us, right? And to be in those rooms where that impact can make was hard. But even before then, this may shock you, is that it took people a while to build the bridge of why it's important to send students abroad, right? We have a very specific niche in our impact. We're helping students travel, we're helping them study abroad, we're helping them see the world, which there are plenty of other noble causes that are easy to like attach the like understanding of the impact, right? Like whether it's kids in poverty, or whether it's awarenesses around diseases, or the typical, not typical, but the different causes that usually people can like associate. So we had to really connect the bridge of why it is impactful to send a young people abroad and to have them travel, especially, you believe it or not, that was something that we had
It
to
doesn't
really,
shock me.
we had to like, and it made us, and it only challenged us in the best way. Like me and my co-founders were very much like, we loved that, like to be able, and it only made us perfect our storytelling. But yeah, we had to convince people that yes, it is important to let students see the world. Yes.
So it doesn't shock me, and you wanna know why it doesn't shock me? I was one of those people at first. So I was one of those people who's like, "Okay, with all of the things going on in the world right now, why is giving a young person a passport
Yeah.
one of the things that we're trying to raise money for?" And, like, you're trying to raise $100, $200 per person, which in the area that we live in
Yeah. Yeah. Mhm.
at the time, pre-pandemic,
Right.
pre-recession area,
Right.
did not feel like
A
that was a
priority. For sure.
right,
For sure.
exactly.
For sure.
It did not, and it was like, why is this like these let's go feed the homeless, let's go find there were just so many other things. Now, as time went on and things started happening in the world,
Yeah.
George Floyd,
Yep. Yep.
LGBT
Yeah.
issues,
Yeah.
the war in Ukraine,
Yep.
like things started happening. It was way before that that I turned my corner,
Mhm.
but it just reinforced, oh my gosh, had all of these people that were so divisive opened their minds
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
diversity of thought
Exactly. Exactly.
earlier in their lives,
Exactly that. Yes.
then maybe we wouldn't be so divided right now.
And we would also have a better, right, divisive, because we'd have a better understanding that the world is bigger than us, and we'd have a better understanding of the history of one another, and how each other's histories divide. I would say the most impactful thing that happened to me, I went abroad, I studied abroad in Argentina, um my junior year, no, my senior year in college, and it was actually during the time when we were waiting for the indictment, whether or not a police officer that killed Mike Brown would be indicted or not. And it was really interesting because I encountered so many people from different parts of the world, whether it was from a woman from Botswana, this young guy from Germany, these couples from Australia, I mean, across the world. And as soon as they realized where I was from, hearing their perspective from their view of what was going on in my country and where I called home expanded like my thoughts so much. Or even learning, as I am obviously being impacted about the racial attention that's happening. I don't want to say news because it's been going on in the US, but abroad, learning about the racial history in a different country and how similar and different and that gave me a different perspective of who I am as a Black woman in my country, but in the world. And so exactly that. And it's like we are selling a seed, right? We are selling a seed, and that's the vision, that we are planting a seed in a student, that we won't probably see the fruit of it, at least what the
For
world
years.
right,
For
fruit.
years.
But even then, even besides when they're adults, even now, students are coming back that we're talking about marginalized students that usually don't see themselves anywhere. And now we've invested them to see the world, and they come back more confident. They're coming back more engaged in school. They're coming back teaching their family about what they learn. So you're talking about something
It's
that's, yeah,
fascinating, and what we have to remember is the United States of America is only 300 years old.
right. Young.
Like, and that sounds like a long time,
Yeah,
but in the scope of the whole world,
right.
like, when we have these students go to other countries or other areas of the world, I mean, Lisbon is one of the oldest cities in the world, and it's 2,700 years old. Like, 2,700 years old
Yeah,
versus 300 years old. It's
right,
crazy, and all
right.
of a sudden, we're introducing this rich, amazing history and all of these other cultures into these individuals'
Yes,
lives.
exactly that. Exactly that.
So,
Exactly that.
but you said something else that I kinda wanna go into a little bit. You have used 2 phrases repeatedly throughout our conversation, and I wanna kind of dig into that a little bit. So, in your experience, the terms marginalized and underrepresented,
Mhm.
how do those shape the conversation around supporting these students?
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things, you know, the reason why we're intentional when we describe the students that we're targeting, underrepresented and under-resourced, right? Because I'll first talk about under-resourced. I might be underrepresented, but I had the privilege of traveling, and that's something me and my co-founders would talk about, is that we had the financial privilege of traveling, which is a privilege in itself to see the world, and it's been impactful. I had the privilege of coming from immigrant parents who knows what it means like to travel across the world, even though their journey was a struggle in itself, but seeing that, like being exposed to that thought of spreading your wings and going abroad was not foreign to me. And so, um, under-resourced, but underrepresented, if you look at statistics, and it usually goes hand in hand. Usually, when you're looking at the statistics of students that study abroad, Black people make up less than like 4% of that, and then next Hispanic students, and I think even lower than obviously Native American students. And so, when we're explaining to people who we're targeting and getting the support of it, sometimes it's hard when if when you're trying to explain to someone that maybe takes their kids to Disney World Paris every year, right? And it's like, oh, it's vacation, but we are very intentional of explaining that we're not just giving travel, but it's education. It's not just travel. It's not just like going on this trip. Like students are learning. This is a huge critical part and component of their academic career. You see statistics that when students go abroad, Black students are 0.25% more likely to graduate. It increases their chances of graduating and increases their chances of increasing their grades and their engagement. It's this whole thing that adds to their student life, which we know education and finances and your social economic status, they go hand in hand. So,
Part of the human experience includes student experience,
yes,
so that is impacting that, and then future employee experience as
exactly.
well.
Think about
So
when you're having these conversations too, and I'm glad that you brought that up because I don't want to, in a sense, insinuate that we're creating like an elitist group, but you think about right when you think about when you're interviewing, right? Even if we could relate as women, right? the boys club thing, or the people that go golfing, right? Like there's a language that they speak, and then you try to and they build an automatic commonality, and then that means they're more likely to be reached out for opportunities and things like that. But you don't relate to them. That's the same thing as travel, where people that all come from a place of privilege to be able to travel, there's a language they get to speak. There's a exchange of experiences that they get to speak, and then you have these group of people that simply because they didn't have that financial opportunity to do so, they can't relate.
And as they move up in their career,
Yeah.
all of the sudden they're dealing with customers and they're having to have those conversations
Mhm.
and develop and work on the customer
Right.
experience. And that ties into the customer relationship and having that connection. So it does, starting with actually starting even earlier, but that student experience ties into employee experience, which ties into customer experience. So it is impactful.
Yes, exactly, exactly.
So utilizing the right terminology, why is it essential when you're discussing those issues though? Not just I'm going to take it a little
Yeah.
step further. Why is it important when you're discussing not just fundraising, but explaining what it is, but overall utilizing marginalized, underrepresented, and under-resourced?
Mhm. It's important because we're building an equity gap. It's important because we are trying to fill in a hole of opportunities. And we're intentional of what we're saying is if we're really going to talk about this equity thing, right? You really have to put your money in actions where um you know you have to put your money in your actions to what you say that you care about, right? And especially like you said earlier, there's all this conversations about, that I'm glad, and I mean I'm glad, and it's disheartening that it would take, multiple tragedies of lives to bring people's attention to racial inequities. But, if we're talking about even just the statistics that I'm sharing about educational opportunities and where students are left behind look like that are usually black and brown students and those type of communities, it's important that we're emphasizing that we are helping underrepresented, unresourced students so that we can build the gap, so that we can uplift students that often are left behind when it comes to these different opportunities. And that's who we're targeting.
So, from your personal experience, you mentioned that you share that whenever you are explaining
Mhm.
what the foundation is and how it works. What were some of the pivotal moments and some of those experiences when you were traveling and studying abroad that shaped your career? Because recently you made the decision, recently, a
Mhm.
couple of years ago, because you're in your third year of law school,
Yeah.
but you made kind of a change to go to law school. So, what experiences with travel and studying abroad shaped your career and contributed to your success as a professional and where you're headed now?
Absolutely. It's one of those things. It's like going abroad and living abroad, right? One, I'm in a country where I have to learn a different language, right? So, as a human, there's so many interpersonal skills that you have, the ability to adapt, the ability to open up your mind, as you said previously, to different ways of life, and understanding that it might be different for you, but doesn't make it bad. And you learn to adapt, and you learn how to learn the culture of those people and the language of those people, and you figure out that it's okay, your life goes on once you do. um Learning how to, in a beautiful way, draw the similarities of all these very, very different people that don't look like you and never lived the life that you did, and you don't live their life. And I mean, it inspired me, even now into my career, right? And it enriching my educational experience in general. And eventually obviously inspired me to create To Fly and be even more dive into the world of education, which later on encouraged me to made the career pivot, and I'll be going. My career will now be focusing on education law, and what our school districts are doing, and what our school districts are doing to support students and teachers. And hopefully one day I'll probably be in the policy, um, and legislative field. I've written some articles during my time, very long articles, but I poured my heart into them about education law and the gaps in protection of those laws in marginalized communities. And so I don't know if I would be as passionate as I am if I didn't have the opportunity, or people didn't pour into me and encourage me in my own educational career to take these different opportunities and to support me when I was taking those different opportunities.
Well, I foresee some great things in your future in that area because of your passion, and I'm excited to see what you accomplish there. Going kind of back to travel,
Yes.
I'm curious. You know, we talked about student experience and employee experience, and we kind of touched on it a little bit. But how do you think that traveling and experiencing different cultures can help people become better leaders
Yeah,
and really contribute to a better workplace?
absolutely. I mean, yeah, we hit it multiple times. It's especially as a leader, right? Um, a leader is going to be dealing with different people. Whether, even if we say not culturally, there's a different people, but even sense. So how what we define culture evolves, and there's so many parts to that. But leaders needs to be able to communicate and empathize, and have an understanding of people. At least a good leader, right? Let me preface that because there's
See, and that's it, right? Because when we're talking about this, let me give an example. You know, I've worked in several or with several organizations as a consultant, or whether I go in as an actual employee, where they may celebrate all of the Christian holidays.
hmm hmm
Merry Christmas.
right,
We're going to give everybody Good Friday off.
right.
Um,
But what about
or, you know, the 4th of July, which is a US holiday, but you're a global country
right,
or company.
right,
What about Ramadan and
right,
letting people take time off for
or
Ramadan? What
Hanukkah,
about
or
Hanukkah?
mhm,
I worked specifically with an organization where one of the executives was Jewish,
yeah,
and they never ever said anything, but they sent out Christmas
right,
baskets.
right, right, right. Yeah,
And nobody ever said happy Hanukkah to this individual or happy Passover
right,
to them.
right,
And this is a big issue in corporate
yeah.
right now. It's been for not right now. It's been a big issue for a long time. But having individuals get more familiar
With a global
with other
perspective,
cultures.
yeah, and have a global
Correct.
perspective, right? And
And it's not just about religion.
right, it's
It's about
everything.
culture.
Yeah. Like, how many people, I mean, obviously me, right? I have a unique name. I don't even like to say unique. It's just it's different from the US. It's
It's
not
just
common,
different.
right? But if
It's not common.
I like
It's
to
not
joke ar
common where we live.
yeah, exactly. Because I joke
That's it.
around that if I'm in Nigeria, I might as well be like an Ashley or a Brit,
Right.
right? Like, my name is common there, but all that to say exactly what you're saying. It's travel allows you for a second to realize, oh, my culture, my identity, my language, my religion, my point of view is not the only thing in the whole entire world. And I really think that having that allows you to be someone that can better empathize. It can at least give you pause to have an understanding of how should I communicate with this specific person, right? And so I think those are all things that come with hopefully being a good leader, because we have leaders or title people that have leadership titles that don't have necessarily even have those concepts. And so, the idea, and maybe a huge part of why sometimes I'm so passionate about specifically tapping into young people and making sure they have this opportunity young, because I remember that someone and multiple people in my life when I was in middle school tapped into my leadership abilities, and I didn't fully understand what they were doing until I was older, like giving me opportunities, putting in my hand and blossoming. And who's to say that maybe if I didn't have those opportunities when I'm older, I wouldn't blossom. But the fact that I was reached so young, and I even have had the fortunate experience of mentoring young people when they were in middle school and seeing how they're blossoming young. And it makes a difference if you can reach a student that young and mold their hearts and mold their minds so they grow into these amazing individuals that eventually lead our countries and our schools and our, you know, communities, or whatever, wherever they may lead, in the kitchen, whatever it might be, the fashion industry, it doesn't matter, you know.
Absolutely. And but even that, right? In the kitchen, great. Opening our palates up to new foods
Exactly.
and tastes.
Yes.
You know, it's so much more than just one thing, and I think that that's what we're talking about,
Exactly.
right?
Mhm.
Is just opening our hearts and minds to what is in more than just the 5-mile radius
Exactly.
of where we've lived for so long. Because if you put yourself in this circle and that's all you see and know,
Yeah,
then you're not opening yourself up to the idea that there's something different in the world.
exactly. Exactly. And you have to. There's too many of us in this world to not.
There's, what is it? Like, I think we're almost up to 9 billion people in the world now.
I haven't last checked, but that I wouldn't be surprised.
That, and, you know, if there's only 1,000 people in your
Yeah.
vicinity,
And which likely, if they're in your vicinity, that means they're likely somehow in your same socioeconomic group. Most likely, I don't know, depends on where you live, maybe your race, probably your religion, right? And so, yeah, you you haven't had that experience to interact with the world at all.
exactly, broaden the horizons.
Broaden horizon,
So,
sure.
how do you select the students to participate in the program to ensure that the most deserving candidates can broaden their horizons?
Yeah, so every year we have a application cycle and it's open to all students. The criteria is they have to be middle school, high school, or undergrad age. There has to be a significant financial need coming from an underrepresented um, community. Even though I will say we open it up and we have accepted students that aren't necessarily black and brown as well, but there's usually like a significant financial like background. We They have to be a US citizen and they have to be traveling for educational purposes, right? So we're not helping kids that are going on vacation with mom and dad. And usually if they're going on vacation with
They're not backpacking through Europe.
right. That's great. I still encourage them to do it, but we're specifically helping students that this is a part of their educational career, a path or a pathway or whichever. And it's a really a deliberate process. Our board reviews applications. My heart bleeds because I want to give to all of them. But you know, we really do focus specifically on students that show significant financial need. They're from an underrepresented community, and especially if they're the first in their family or their community to leave, right? We really want to tap into those specific students that if it weren't for Two Fly Foundation, they're probably not going anywhere.
So, well, if somebody has one of these random conversations with one of their friends
Mhm,
and they decide, you know what, we're going to pursue this. Like we want to start a nonprofit
mhm.
because we think that we have a way to help others. What is your advice to them?
Oh, God, this is my favorite. I love helping like people that want to start up nonprofits. I just, um, and expand their impact. And I'm always an encourager that you can make an impact with or without forming an entity. But you know, I always say like my top thing to people that want to start a nonprofit, I say do the work now. That's always like my first thing I say. Like a lot of times we want to have everything perfect. We want to have our 501c. We want to have our name. We have our website. We want to have our logo, everything. And my thing is, if your end goal is to have the biggest homeless shelter in whatever city, what are you doing right now in your own capacity to help the homeless? So if it's not until we get to the biggest homeless shelter, can you every month make sandwiches for the homeless and get your friends to do it, right? Start with that. And then second, what I would encourage them to do is to, get the paperwork done. Like figure out what you want to name it, claim every domain, website domain or Instagram name or everything. And even if you don't ever touch it, just put it to the side and figure that out. And then three, figure out who your core team is going to be. And usually your core team is not necessarily your friends, or, there might be the colleague, that might be that account expert that you have a relationship with, who are going to be people that, if you were to make a board right now, and each state requires you to have a different a number of boards, but who are the founding people that are going to be the advocates for you in whatever capacity, or for the mission, right? And then four, this probably is more so a mindset thing, and something I had to learn as I grew into being an executive director and founder, is understand that the mission is bigger than you. And if the mission is bigger than you, that means you need people to help drive. And you have to be forward of thinking of, how is this going to be something that's going to outlive you? And that's something that I had to really learn as a leader of, the capacity of this org cannot rise and fall on me. How am I going to build a great team that if tomorrow I had to go somewhere else, this mission is going to still keep going and growing and impacting students? So that's definitely what I would say to anyone that wants to start, or formalize their passion into a nonprofit.
That is really good advice. And you're right. It is difficult to get to that point to realize at some point I'm not going to be here, and this needs to continue on without me.
Yes.
Well, if somebody, well, two questions. One, why would somebody reach out to you? And two, how would they reach out to you?
Yeah. If hopefully someone wants to reach out to me because they want to help the Two Fly Foundation and help us broaden the horizons of young people and help them study abroad and partner with us in any capacity. Or if someone wants to simply, I hope that, if someone wants to be an advocate and join our mission in whatever capacity, or two, if there's someone that's out there that's interested in going to law school, or three, if someone's out there and wants to build a nonprofit, I love being a resource to other people as well. So if any of those three categories fit people, they can reach me at Bola at TooFly, that's TOO flyfoundation.org. If you follow Two Fly Foundation on any of the platforms, you can DM us, and someone on my comm team will relay the message. Either way, it's very easy to find me and connect with me.
And that information, as always, if you are watching us on YouTube, will be below. If you are listening, I am super glad that Bola just spelled it out for you. But you're missing out because Bola and I both look fantastic.
Yes, you do. You look
great. Bola, thank you so much for joining us. It is fantastic, and I always enjoy our time together.
Thank you, Anne. Thank you for having me.
And for everybody else, thank you for joining us, and we will see you again next week. As we wrap the episode up, we would like to take this time to thank you for joining us this week on Unexpected Journey. Our guest information will be linked in the episode description, along with a link to our company website, remoteevolution.com, and our host website, annbib.com. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share on your favorite podcast app and on our YouTube channel so that you never miss an episode and we can continue to bring them to you. Let us know your thoughts on what we discussed in the comment section. And once again, thank you for joining us. We hope to see you again next week for another episode of Unexpected Journey.